Classmates, as we come to the end of our course study of Jonathan Edwards and his time in history, I want to express my appreciation for the insight I have gained from your postings as we have gone through this course. The readings have been enormous, and it would have been impossible for me to have been exposed to much of the content without your help. I have chosen to do a research paper to unravel the character of Jonathan Edwards by examining a body of literature that historical scholars have crafted in their attempt to identify the most accurate perception of who he was. Being an activist, preacher, missionary, philosopher, theologian, and one of the greatest religious thinkers in the history of the Americas, he was a multidimensional individual who has led many historical scholars to analyze his writings and those of his time period, painting different portraits of his religious icon. As a result, his portrait can become distorted when historians attempt to divide the Edwards of history and the Edwards of faith. Is it possible that the contradictory images are simply the reflection of the complexity of an individual who sought to find his way in life? In this paper, I attempt to highlight the influences that formed his character as well as what he influenced that has continued to impact our day. I begin with the Great Awakening by using Robert Brockway's text, A Wonderful Work of God, Puritanism and the Great Awakening, underlining the influences that the Reformation and Puritanism had upon Edwards in creating conversion as the focus of evangelicalism, which was predominantly an Anglo-American phenomenon. Evangelicalism and emotionalism were two stimuli that, for whatever reason, preconditioned the culture with characteristics that defined and divided the Great Awakening event and continue to identify with spiritual awakening today. I discussed the faithfulness of his beliefs regarding the church ordinance of membership and the Lord's Supper, even at the expense of being ousted from his church pastorate, using such authors as Conforti, Marsden, McDermott, and Winarski to support Edwards' convictions of the necessity of a sanctified life as a requisite for the Lord's Supper. In using Edwards' own work, A Divine and Spiritual Life, I point out to one of Edwards' most characteristic principles was that there was a difference between believing something theoretically and having a true sense of it as a personal reality, a belief that anchors many Christians today. Recognizing the work of Stephen Stein, I attempt to show how the recorded prayers of Edwards' contemporaries indicated a great deal about the religious ideas and practices of Edwards' congregation, as well as Edwards' influences through his sermons and ministries upon their thinking. I capitalize on the work of R. Brian Bateman, where he took the writings of scholars who emphasized the various and different influences Edwards had on social, political, and religious issues that impacted the 18th century theology and still informs us in the 21st century today. I conclude with the work of Minkham as he traces the impact the work and life of Jonathan Edwards has had upon the academic world and religious community of today. Throughout the paper, I attempt to show the influences that crafted his character and the resulting imprint he made on his world and ours. Even though historical scholars painted different portraits of the religious icon, my conclusion mirrored that of George Marsden when he said Edwards, despite some evident shortcomings, was a saint according to the highest reformed spiritual standard to which he aspired.